Arthur Lakes was crawling around on Dinosaur Ridge in 1876, came across some bones with a buddy of his, trying to figure out what they were, sent them off to paleontologists to be studied, and after said paleontologist, Othniel Charles Marsh, or O.C. Marsh, or just Marsh as we end up calling him, did the research, looked at the bones, found more in Wyoming, started publishing. People started getting a hold of Stegosaurus, first as like a concept, and then as actual paleo art. So let's go through some of Stegosaurus through time and giggle a little bit. A new art who dis. In 1884, this is one of the first illustrations attempted to be done of Stegosaurus. And it was from Marsh's report in 1877 about plates, potential spikes, big bones, long leg bones, but no mention of front leg bones. So it must be a bipedal creature that has these fun, weird little plates along its tail, similar to an alligator or a crocodile. We got to put those spikes somewhere, so here you go. This is our happy little Stegosaurus living with whatever that is, and then this critter, which none of them lived together, but they were all dinosaurs except for that one. And we're kind of put all into the same illustration in 1884. So in 1891, Marsh was like, okay, I gotta set the record straight. And so this is probably what most of the folks in the middle think of as Stegosaurus, right? Big swoopy back, tail hanging out of the ground. It's kind of what it's like your mom's Stegosaurus, right? It's what you grew up with. So this is 1891 Marsh's Stegosaurus skeletal. And these are based on the bones from Wyoming. Some of the bone material was also incorporated with this skeleton, but the one in Wyoming was a little bit more complete. Had tons of spikes, so you end up seeing a tail of 8 spikes on this particular Stegosaurus. So, looking better. This is actually a Stegosaurus. We can kind of get away with this. And then, as opposed to having upright legs, they went crocodile. But they're lizards, right? Saurus means lizard. Therefore, sprawl them. And this is going to kind of be what we look like for a while. This is in 1893, despite the fact of having what was reported as elephantine limbs of being upright. We end up with this Sprawlosaurus spondylus. So we have, again, look at these, I giggled at these, look at these tiny tail spikes, look how cute they are. Pin cushion. But the plates are very cool. Because we have this artwork that was done in 1899. This is done after all of those other art pieces. After the skeletal came out, he went back to the original description that Marsh thought that our Stegosaurus could be like a turtle. The plates on the back could have laid flat, like parts of the carapace of a turtle. And so he went back and said, I'm going to draw the turtlesaur Stegosaurus. And so in 1899, Frank Bond made our little, I don't know, these are the cutest little legs. I don't know. Teeny little head, and then, let's just wedge the spikes into the plates. So let's just cover the whole thing in plates. Armor, right? If they were calling it armor, I mean, this makes a lot more sense than just having a strip down your back. Makes sense. Then Charles R. Knight storms in 1901 for the Smithsonian Institute Dinosaur Hall. And in 1905, the Brontosaurus would get installed as well, with the wrong head, the wrong feet, the wrong tail, but the body was cool. And so here is Charles Knight's Stegosaurus, a little bit more elephantine, definitely used Marsh's skeleton. People used the bones to put it together, and we have 8 spikes on our trail, still kind of pin-cushiony, not as cool. It'll get cooler, I promise. But based on the actual skull that was found along with it, you have what they called an eagle-like head. But we do have an example here of this exact skull. This is the replica of the Stegosaurus skull that they used to make this artwork. It is crushed. So when you look at it, it's squished, which everybody didn't realize it was squished, so they just thought Stegosaurus' head was shaped like that. So we end up with a really squished head and you get artwork of eagle face. There is so much to unpack on this picture here, and I wish I could have made it darker. This is after I made it a little darker. This is legit. This is 1920s science. As good as it could be. My favorite? This guy. Oh no. That's the theory. So their plates are flexible enough to flap. And they could go from vertical, if I'm eating plants on the ground, or they can take their plates and flatten them and make them horizontal, like little wings, and then jump off cliffs. As you can see, this little one's like, take off. Here we go. There are speed lines. This is a landing Stegosaurus threatening this naked dude. I don't know. But yes, they would leap off cliffs and glide to the ground, ignoring the fact that they're 30 feet long and 5 tons. It's fine. You could throw an elephant off a cliff. It has big ears. I've seen Dumbo. This is fine. Disney's Fantasia in 1940 came out, and they had The Rite of Spring. Awesome musical piece, but then they put all of prehistory and things to it. And watching the Allosaurus go for this super chonk monster that is the Stegosaurus, and that big, lumbering, slow, tail-draggy hamburger. Fights back, gets rowdy, we have tail spikes, let's use them. Doesn't make it out. But this was the beginning of looking at dinosaurs in a little bit of a different way. Earlier than this, you have King Kong, right? Where you have some dinosaurs fighting in King Kong. Again, big chonk monsters that are just there to be silly. This is the first time dinosaurs appeared in movies to not be silly, to not just be goofy, and to be comedic relief. This is actually a real story of animals living in the past, which is pretty cool that they kind of threw Stegosaurus right in the middle of that, because it really is the weirdest dinosaur. Because if you think of the plates and you think of the spikes, there's nothing else out there that has that. There are no other dinosaurs that have that. There are no modern day animals that have that. And then from this until about the 1980s, we have that lumbering Stegosaurus look. But we're going to go technical. If everybody is okay with me getting a little tech. Are you cool with that? I'm going to get kind of technical. I'm going to throw some... Sure. He's in. He's in. So Gary Larson is not unknown for throwing Stegosaurus, the weirdest dinosaur, into comics. We have our picture. The picture's pretty bleak, gentlemen. World's climate's changing. Mammals are taking over. We all have a brain about the size of a walnut. And that is the summit, right? Stegosaurus comes over to your house. Furniture's ruined. Gary Larson has some awesome dinosaur comics, but none better than in 1982, the iconic cavemen sitting listening to a lecture. It was a silly joke. I think it ended up in every paleontologist's office, cut out from the newspaper. And Dr. Ken Carpenter used it in a 1993 lecture of, wouldn't it be funny if Thagomizer actually was a scientific term? And well, hey, guess what? Here is the comic. It is just silly. This end is called the Thagomizer, named after the late Thag Simmons, which means he tangled with it, had a rough day. So let's talk about the Thagomizer. We're going to play with some fossils. Thagomizer edition, playing with some fossils. Get Thagomized. This is a good Thagomizer, C. And then we have some broken Thagomizers. Some broken Thagomizers that show bone growth and healing, which means they tangled with some stuff and it broke their tail spikes. Not just the keratin on the outside. We're going to look at tail spikes here in just a second. But also the bone on the inside fractured. And it left him with 2 busted tail spikes, which is very cool. So these are bones that grow in the skin. They're not connected to the skeleton in any way. They just grow in the skin on the outside of the skeleton, the muscle around the skeleton. The plates are the same thing. They're also awesome. But only stegosaurs, all of them, not just our beloved Stegosaurus, all of them have tail spikes. And that is what makes a Stegosaurus a Stegosaurus. Having tail spikes. Doesn't matter if it's 2, 4, 8 tail spikes. Its tail spikes is what makes you a stegosaur. What were the tail spikes used for? You must answer.
Toothpick.
I won't keep going. Toothpicks. I like toothpicks.
Knitting.
Knitting. Mm-hmm. Knitting. For sure. So we have a couple of vertebrae of our Allosaurus that a thagomizer fits straight through the holes in these vertebrae. Allosaurus got a little close to the wrong end. Go to the front end. That's not the spiky end. So we have some holes in our vertebrae. Got a little bit too close. Stegosaurus swung its tail, and those thagomizers went through the spine. Lucky for the Allosaurus, some bone growth around it means that he survived it to hunt another day. Stegosaurus had the unique flexibility in its tail to be able to swing up and down, to be able to basically point those spikes wherever it needed to go. So, Allosaurus, again, a little too close to the wrong end, and Stegosaurus swung down and up and got him right in the pubis, which is the bone we sit on. It's also the bone that Allosaurus sat on. So, here is the end of that bone, one of the 3 bones in the hip, and there's this giant pocket right here. They poured latex into it to take a copy of it. What does it look like on the inside? And you have this thagomizer-shaped hole. Thagomizer fits perfectly right into it. And then you have this extra abscess that was next to it. Big, massive bone infection that ate away at the bone. There is no healing that happened on this animal. It took a thagomizer to its bum, and then weeks later died of infection. But, yeah, thagomizers, they were used for defense. Pretty cool. I mean, not for that guy. It was a rough day, but it was a pretty cool fossil. So this is what we call pathology, being able to look at certain types of fossils, fit them together into wounds or injuries to bones. We see that today in us, right? So if you're thinking of an animal swinging its tail and swinging that thagomizer, you have a lot of force and speed that goes into perforating injuries that put holes in stuff. All right, so let's play with plates now. Let's look at plates. So here we're looking at plates. The one on the left is impressive, looks very cool. We're going to come back to it. The one on the right, this little guy, is the tip of a part of the plate that was found at Dinosaur Ridge in 1877, 1878. And Marsh started to put it together, and that led to plates being identified for Stegosaurus, which is very cool. You can go see this little tip of the plate over at Morrison Natural History Museum. So yes, we're talking Stegosaurus plates if you don't yet have the Stegosaurus plate license plate. When you leave tonight, ogle all of the vehicles that do and realize that you're missing out on being in a cool club. There are no dinosaurs that have plates other than Stegosaurus. That's it. No other dinosaurs grew osteoderms in this shape. Look at the thinness of it. They grew vertical. Everything else grew kind of flat and wide. So these dinosaurs got weird. They wanted to be pretty and be noticed, and I don't blame them. So we have these little grooves. What are the grooves? These are blood vessel impressions that are in literally blood vessels growing on top of the bone, which is weird. Why have your blood vessels on the outside of your body? That's a terrible place to put them. And that's what led them to realizing that there was a sheath over the bone. That was what led them to, it's probably keratin being fed by blood around the plates and the tail spikes. So all these cool little grooves here, these little river patterns, are blood vessels. And it would likely be able to pump blood up to its plates to potentially make them flush with color. For many different reasons. Why would you want to pump a bunch of blood up to your plate, right? You want to look good? Also, Allosaurus. I don't like you. I don't want to get eaten by you. I'm going to make my plate super bright and red, and I'm going to turn my body sideways, and all of a sudden I look a lot bigger and scarier than we thought, which is pretty cool. So this could be heating, this could be cooling. right? Flush some bloods up, stand in the breeze. It's going to cool you down. These are all theories, right? What were they probably used for? Looking pretty, right? But the plates are so cool and so unique that, are they armor? Your armor shouldn't be bony potato chips. But they would protect the spine. And we do have some evidence. We have a little Allosaurus jaw here, taking a little chomp out of this plate. There's tooth scratch and tooth mark impressions. So on this little guy here, just right at the front of its mouth there, just taking a little chomp, just a little chomp out of bone. So now we know what Stegosaurus is, we know what Stegosaurus has. Where was Stegosaurus found? On June 15th of 1876, Morrison Bear Creek. We have this letter that was written. So the O.C. Marsh Papers is a place where you can go, anyone can go, and check out their amazing catalog in the Yale Peabody Museum collection of people that sent letters to a super paranoid person who kept everything. And some beautiful set of interns scanned them all in. And so we have these awesome scanned copies of letters, and I went on a tangent one day and was like, I wonder if Lakes had any letters. Lots. But 1876 was the date on them, and that kind of threw me because it wasn't supposed to be 1876. It was supposed to be 1877. That's what Arthur Lakes said. Except here is Arthur Lakes saying 1876, and I went, hang on, Arthur. But here is our little friend. That's a Stegosaurus. This is what Arthur Lakes saw. This was the first glimpse of what probably was scientifically the world's first Stegosaurus. Now, were there native peoples all over Colorado that likely saw Stegosaurus bones far, far before white scientists came in and named it Stegosaurus? Of course. But scientifically speaking, 1876, Arthur Lakes stared at a rock, and he said, in the spot where we got Sauria 4, the fourth dinosaur he found, that's how he numbered them, some cross-shaped bones of a brown color in a rather decomposing rock and softer clay. And here's his little sketch here, super cute. Looks just like it. He was an artist. No joke, he was actually an artist, but not in his letters. They were little sketches. But here we have little cross-shaped bones. That's our Stegosaurus's butt. Right there, just the top of the tail, right there of our Stegosaurus. And that's the first look that Marsh and Lakes got of Stegosaurus. So who wants to see more Stegosaurus? We're going on a field trip to Dinosaur Diamond this October 11th through 14th. It's a Dinosaur Diamond field trip. We're going to hit Dinosaur Journey in Fruta, Moab Giants. We're going to hit the Cleveland Lloyd Quarry, which is an Allosaurus predator trap. Thousands of Allosaurus bones there with a little long neck that got stuck in the mud, and then they all kept going in, kind of like the La Brea of the Jurassic. And of course, Dinosaur National Monument, you kind of can't do the Jurassic journey without hitting Dinosaur National Monument. And you will see Stegosaurus at every single one of these places. And if you want to know more about Stegosaurus, come with us. It's going to be great. We're going to do transportation. It's 4 days, 3 nights. Tons of behind-the-scenes tours. We have some awesome paleo people at Dinosaur Journey, at Moab Giants, and at Dinosaur National Monument that are going to give us some behind-the-scenes stuff and some lectures, and it's going to be a cool, cool, cool time. But that love of Stegosaurus has always been there. It's like the weird polar opposite of T-Rex being the coolest and the bitiest and the biggest and the scariest, right? Stegosaurus is tiny head, weird limbs, 5 fingers, 3 toes, spikes, and like plates, like a mohawk. It is just a weird looking dinosaur. And there are plenty of weird looking dinosaurs out there.